Hello, you're watching A News Morning from Baku. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and let's see the headlines. The United Nations condemns any violation of Syria's territorial integrity, UN spokesperson says. The World Health Organization chief confident of finalizing pandemic treaty next year. The Nobel Prize award ceremonies took place in Oslo and Stockholm. To Syria now, where a major political shift is underway. Following the overthrow of President Bashar al-Assad on Sunday, rebels have named Mohammed al-Bashir, a former governor from the rebel-held northwest, as the head of the transitional government. An interim administration has already been established, signaling the start of a new chapter for the country.
New caretaker Prime Minister of Syria, Mohammed al-Bashir, pledged to oversee Syria's transition until March 1st. Known for governing a rebel enclave in northwest Syria, al-Bashir said his administration is working with remnants of the Salvation government and the previous government to ensure a smooth handover of institutions. Meanwhile, the presidential palace in Damascus, a long-standing symbol of Assad's governance, is now under rebel control. Rebels inspected the building, leaving graffiti reading down with Bashar al-Assad on the walls and the Syrian flag on the ground. Rebel leader Abu Musab al-Halabi called for a smooth transfer of power to stabilize the capital. As Damascus sees banks and shops reopening, the streets are clearing of heavy rebel presence, with local police taking over security. The transition marks the start of efforts to rebuild governance and normality after years of conflict.
Many questions are now raised about the political future of Syria and how this could impact geopolitics both regionally and around the world. There are also countless personal tragedies as families mourn the loss of loved ones. Here is a story now of one family's devastating loss.
As Syria continues to endure its devastating conflict, the toll on its people grows heavier each day. Akram Shalbout, a father in Jordan, mourns the loss of his son Mustafa, killed in a strike on Homs. The strike is one of many in this ongoing conflict, which continues to escalate as rebel forces advance across the country. The father was overwhelmed with grief when he heard the news of his son Mustafa's death, just minutes after warning him not to visit the village due to ongoing bombings.
I told him, son, don't go. There's a lot of bombings and the village is in a mess. There's bombing here, a bombing there, and the situation is a mess.
Shalbout, who has lived in Jordan for the past decade, said his son had chosen to remain in Syria with his wife and daughter on the outskirts of Homs. Reflecting on his son's death, Shalbout shared the pain of not seeing him for 13 years.
When he was martyred, the sadness was because it's been 13 years that I have not seen him. That's it, he is martyred. May he rest in peace. I can't bring him back. The crying of his siblings made us forget Syria and the regime. When the news of the regime's fall came, the joy wasn't overwhelming. Truly, when they announced the fall of the regime, the mother of Mustafa said, I no longer care about all of Syria.
Meanwhile, Syrian rebels stormed Damascus Sunday, seizing the capital and forcing President Bashar al-Assad to flee to Russia. As the conflict continues to devastate families like Shalbout's, the emotional and human cost of the war is felt deeply across the country.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan expressed hope that the new post-Assad administration in Syria will continue with an approach that encompasses and embraces all sectors of Syrian society. President Erdogan has expressed Turkey's strong support for the Syrian people following the recent ouster of Bashar al-Assad. Erdogan said Turkey wholeheartedly believes Syrians will succeed in rebuilding their future. He also highlighted the devastation left behind by the Assad rule.
Suriye'de 61 yıldır.
The evil that has been sustained in Syria for 61 years with blood and tears has now come to an end. God willing, the hardest period in this country is now behind us from Sunday. We cannot allow Syria to be divided again. Any attack on the freedom of the Syrian people, the stability of the new Syrian administration, or the integrity of Syria's ancient lands will find us standing alongside the Syrian people.
Gönlünü sonuna kadar.
The United Nations is also against any violation of the territorial integrity of Syria. UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, commenting Israeli strikes on its neighbor, called for de-escalation and a focus on civilian protection. He added that the transformation of Syria must remain inclusive to avoid further conflict, stressing that actions from international actors must not undermine the country's future stability. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric also emphasized that Syria must be allowed to determine its own path, free from external interference.
It is very clear that we stand against any violation of the territorial integrity of Syria. We're against these types of attacks. I think this is a turning point for Syria. It should not be used by its neighbors to encroach on the territory of Syria. It should be used by all those in the region and beyond to support the Syrian people so they can choose their own path, so they can work on a transition that is Syrian-led, that is Syrian-owned, that is inclusive, where all the minorities, the myriads of minorities that are in Syria feel safe and feel they are part of the Syrian nation.
The U.S. Missile Defense Agency successfully intercepted an air-launched ballistic missile target near Guam. The Flight Experiment Mission 02 test used advanced defense systems to intercept the target. This launch underscores the Pentagon's commitment to strengthening Guam's defenses and refining the Guam defense system for enhanced protection. The White House has condemned a devastating massacre in Haiti that has left nearly 200 people dead. The attack took place in Haiti's Cité Soleil neighborhood over the weekend. It was reportedly ordered by a gang leader accusing others of using witchcraft against his child. Most of the victims were elderly residents. Gangs have taken control of large parts of the country, fueling violence, kidnappings, and food shortages as political instability continues to worsen the crisis. The White House official urged the international community to support efforts to restore security in Haiti.
We are horrified by the reporting that nearly 200 people in Haiti were needlessly massacred, as you just stated, by self-serving criminal gang members. And so we strongly condemn this vicious and criminal act. And we call upon all of the international community to immediately stand with the people of Haiti and provide assistance to the Kenyan-led multinational security support mission. But it is incredibly sad to us what we've been reported, and it's horrific.
Former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, now a Republican supporter of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, is nominated by him to head U.S. intelligence. Known for her controversial views on Syria, Iran, and Ukraine, her nomination sparks significant debate and criticism about her suitability for this crucial role.
Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic Congresswoman who joined the Republican Party to back Donald Trump in October, is now the President-elect's hand-picked choice for the position of Director of National Intelligence. Described as a superwoman by the Russian news agency RIA Novosti, known for her past appearances on Russian TV and self-admittedly being claimed as a probable agent of the Russian special services by the Ukrainian intelligence, Gabbard's nomination has raised accusations that she has in the past amplified narratives supporting Moscow's rhetoric over the war in Ukraine and Syria. Having no prior experience in the field, Gabbard's prospective new role, if confirmed, would authorize her to oversee 18 intelligence agencies, including the CIA, FBI, and the National Security Agency, and manage a budget of more than $70 billion. Gabbard's past records, initiatives and statements are now referred to by her critics questioning the judiciousness of her nomination for a critical post, with the Democrats claiming that her comments signify a pro-Russian bent that poses a problem for US national security if she is confirmed by the Senate. In November 2015, Gabbard, then the incumbent Democratic representative, introduced a subsequently botched legislation to block US military action against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Being extremely critical of the opposition rebel forces of Syria's civil war, Gabbard claimed that Hezbollah, Russia and Iran had been working towards defeating America's common enemy, describing the conflict itself as a war waged between terrorists under the command of groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the government of Bashar al-Assad. In March 2016, she was one of the 3 members of the Congress to vote against House Resolution 121, which condemned the government of Syria and other parties to the conflict for war crimes and crimes against humanity, stating that although Assad was a brutal dictator, the resolution was a thinly veiled attempt to use humanitarianism as a justification for overthrowing the Syrian government. After having 2 unplanned meetings with the Syrian leader during a trip to Syria and Lebanon in January 2017, Gabbard made statements perceived by some as an endorsement for the government in Damascus, suggesting that the chemical against civilians might have been perpetrated by opposition forces for the purpose of drawing the US and the West deeper into the war. On Iran, Gabbard is known for her continuous opposition to the Trump administration's decision to withdraw from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, imposing restraints on Tehran's nuclear program in exchange of lifting nuclear-related sanctions against it. In January 2022, still a Democrat, she heavily criticized the assassination of Iran's Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani, describing this as an act of war against Tehran with no congressional approval. Gabbard also expressed her support for another Russian ally, Armenia, during its war with Azerbaijan in 2020. Earlier in 2017, she was part of a team of US lawmakers who visited Armenia and Azerbaijan's internationally recognized Karabakh region, then under the control of separatist groups, propped up Yerevan, in turn backed by Moscow. What is the most controversial about President-elect Trump's choice to lead the US intelligence services is her, as what many critics suggest, pro-Russian statements in the context of the war in Ukraine. Gabbard remains very critical of American assistance for Ukraine, viewing the support given to Kiev as jeopardizing global security by antagonizing Russia. Back in 2022, she claimed as to the existence of dozens of US-funded biolabs working on some of the world's nastiest pathogens in Ukraine. In the past, Gabbard portrayed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as corrupt.
In Israel, protests erupted outside a Tel Aviv courthouse as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu testified for the first time in his long-running corruption trial. Despite last-minute efforts to delay proceedings, he took the stand, dismissing allegations of corruption as simply ridiculous.
Demonstrations flared outside the district court in Tel Aviv as Benjamin Netanyahu made his first appearance on the witness stand in his corruption trial. Crowds demanded accountability, while Netanyahu maintained his innocence, calling the charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust baseless. In court, Netanyahu greeted a packed gallery before testifying. He claimed he had always intended to address the allegations but was delayed by Israel's multiple security challenges, referencing the wars in Gaza and Lebanon. Footage of the courtroom shows the Israeli leader mingling with attendees before calling the accusations simply ridiculous. Netanyahu, on trial since 2020, faces mounting scrutiny, with critics accusing him of exploiting national security issues to deflect from legal troubles. Despite calls for his resignation, Prime Minister remains in office under Israeli law unless convicted by the Supreme Court. As the legal and political turmoil deepens, opposition leaders and international organizations, including the International Criminal Court, continue to scrutinize Netanyahu's leadership amid allegations of war crimes.
In South Korea, lawmakers passed a special council bill to enable an investigation into President Yoon Suk-yeol's short-lived declaration of martial law. The parliament's move comes 3 days after the president survived an impeachment vote.
South Korea's parliament has launched an investigation into President Yoon Suk-yeol's brief declaration of martial law on December 3, a move widely criticized as unconstitutional. Martial law, typically reserved for extreme emergencies, was lifted just 6 hours after being imposed, sparking political turmoil across the nation. The special council bill, passed with 210 votes in favor, aims to uncover the events leading to this unprecedented decision. President Yoon and several senior officials now face treason charges and are under a travel ban. Prime Minister Han Duck-seo and intelligence officials have been summoned for questioning, while former Defense Minister Kim Yong-kyun, detained for treason, missed a court hearing on Tuesday. The opposition bloc, which failed to impeach Yoon last week, plans another vote. Meanwhile, ruling party members are reportedly considering Yoon's resignation, potentially triggering early elections.
The World Health Organization's Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has expressed confidence that the global pandemic agreement will be finalized by May 2025, despite concerns over U.S. participation under President-elect Donald Trump.
For the past 2 years, 194 members of the World Health Organization have been negotiating over the pandemic agreement. Its aim is to increase global cooperation in preventing and managing future health crises after recognizing failures during COVID-19. Despite setbacks, the WHO is hopeful that a deal can be concluded in time for the World Health Assembly next May. However, there are concerns that the Trump administration, which has previously questioned international health agreements, may not support the deal. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus remained optimistic. He reassured that the WHO's partnership with the United States has been successful for many years.
We're ready to work together. And the relationship between WHO and the US, the United States, has been actually a good model of partnership and has been partnering for many years. And we believe that that will be the case. And I believe, the U.S. leaders understand that, the U.S. cannot be safe unless the rest of the world is safe.
An initial attempt to seal an agreement failed this year, and diplomats see a deal, which right-wing commentators say would undermine sovereignty, as less likely under Trump.
Turkey's domestically developed armed drone, the Bayraktar TB2, has reached a historic milestone, surpassing 1 million flight hours. This achievement makes it the first Turkish aircraft to reach this mark. Since entering service in 2014, the TB2, developed by Baykar, has been a key player in global military operations, traveling a distance equal to 150 million kilometers. Its success solidifies it as Turkey's longest-serving national air platform. Baykar has positioned Turkey as the world's largest exporter of armed drones, holding 65% of the global market. With export agreements in 35 countries, the company generated $1.8 billion in export revenues in 2023, with over 90% of its sales international. Nobel Prize ceremonies took place in Oslo and Stockholm, with global leaders and distinguished guests honoring this year's laureates.
The Nobel Peace Prize ceremony took place at Oslo City Hall, an historic venue known for its long-standing tradition. This year's Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Nihon Hidankyo, a Japanese organization founded in 1956. The organization, which represents the survivors of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, is committed to abolishing nuclear weapons and promoting a world free of nuclear threats. Terumi Tanaka, a survivor of the Nagasaki bombing, spoke about the ongoing threat of nuclear weapons and the critical need for disarmament.
被害者になってもおかしくない、あるいは加害者になるかもしれない。
Our movement has undoubtedly played a major role in creating the nuclear taboo. However, there still remain 12,000 nuclear warheads on Earth today, 4,000 of which are operationally deployed, ready for immediate launch. The nuclear superpower, Russia, threatens to use nuclear weapons in its war against Ukraine, and a cabinet member of Israel, amidst its unrelenting attacks on Gaza and Palestine, even spoke of the possible use of nuclear arms. In addition to the civilian casualties, I'm infinitely saddened and angered that the nuclear taboo threatens to be broken.
Meanwhile, in Stockholm, the Nobel Prizes in Medicine, Physics, Chemistry, Literature, and Economic Sciences are presented at a ceremony in the concert hall. The Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded to Victor Ambros and Gary Ruvkun. The scientists discovered microRNA, a new class of tiny RNA molecules that play a crucial role in gene regulation. The 2024 Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences was awarded to Darren Acemoglu, Simon Johnson, and James A. Robinson for their studies of how institutions are formed and affect prosperity.
The correct word would probably be very interested in everything that has to do with African.
The Nobel Prize in Physics was presented to John J. Hopfield and Jeffrey E. Hinton for foundational discoveries and inventions that enabled machine learning with artificial neural networks. The 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded with one half to David Baker for computational protein design and the other half jointly to Demis Hazzapis and John M. Jumper for protein structure prediction. The Nobel Prize ceremonies in Oslo and Stockholm today showcase the remarkable achievements of this year's laureates, whose contributions to peace, science, and the betterment of humanity continue to inspire global progress.
As Christmas Day approaches, the festive spirit is lighting up cities worldwide. In Manila and Tokyo, the holiday season is already in full swing, with dazzling decorations, vibrant displays, and communities coming together to celebrate. Let's take a closer look at how these two cities are embracing the magic of Christmas.
In Manila, the vibrant capital of the Philippines, parks are dazzling with lights and festive decorations, showcasing the nation's deep-rooted holiday spirit. Locals begin their preparations as early as September, with holiday tunes in the air and gift shopping starting in advance. As 80% of the population practices Catholicism, Christmas remains an important tradition for the nation, bringing communities together. In Japan's capital, Tokyo, both locals and tourists embrace the holiday season with art displays and light illuminations. This year's theme is one of Nintendo's popular games, Super Mario Bros., featuring a 13-meter-tall installation with Mario and friends, drawing the attention of the crowd. While Christmas in Japan is not a religious holiday, it has become a widely embraced cultural event with a focus on festive decor, romantic outings, and shared meals. Whether through long-standing customs or innovative themes, this holiday season reflects the universal desire to celebrate unity, hope, and joy.
Well, that's all we have for this hour. You can also get latest news and headlines around the clock on our website, that is anews.tv. Thank you for watching, and also we wish you a good day ahead.